The courtroom fell dead silent as Judge Judy Sheindlin leaned forward in her chair, her piercing gaze cutting through the air like a laser beam aimed directly at the world's richest man. Elon Musk sat frozen in the defendant's chair, his usual confident smirk completely wiped from his face as America's toughest judge delivered the most devastating single line ever heard on daytime television. "Mr. Musk, you can buy Twitter, you can launch rockets to Mars, but you cannot buy your way out of being a liar in my courtroom." The words hit like a nuclear bomb, and what happened next would shock the entire world. But this wasn't just any ordinary case that brought the Tesla CEO face to face with television's most feared judge. Hidden beneath this seemingly simple contract dispute was a web of secrets, lies, and betrayal that would expose a side of Elon Musk that his millions of followers had never seen before. The plaintiff sitting across from him wasn't just some random contractor seeking payment. This was someone who had been inside Musk's inner circle, someone who knew things that could destroy reputations and end careers, someone who had been silenced for months until this very moment in Judge Judy's courtroom. What started as a routine $75,000 dispute over unpaid bills was about to become the most explosive hour in daytime television history. Because what Judge Judy didn't know when she agreed to hear this case was that she was about to uncover a scandal so massive, so unbelievable, that it would make headlines around the world and force the most powerful man in tech to face consequences for the first time in his life. The defendant's chair had never held someone with so much to lose, and the plaintiff's testimony was about to reveal secrets that Musk had spent millions trying to keep buried. As cameras rolled and millions watched live, nobody in that courtroom could have predicted that this single case would expose lies, fraud, and a pattern of behavior so shocking that it would trend on every social media platform within minutes and leave even Judge Judy herself speechless. The world's richest man was about to learn that money, power, and influence mean absolutely nothing when you're sitting in front of a judge who has spent 25 years destroying liars and fraudsters on live television. Before we dive into this incredible story that will change everything you think you know about accountability in America, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe because what you're about to witness is the kind of explosive confrontation that happens once in a lifetime. Seriously, you won't want to miss a single second of this because what Judge Judy uncovered in this case will shock you to your core and prove that no one, absolutely no one, is above the law. But here's what makes this story even more unbelievable and why you need to stick around until the very end. Because the final evidence that Judge Judy revealed in this case didn't just embarrass Elon Musk, it completely destroyed his carefully crafted public image and exposed secrets that will haunt him forever. This wasn't just another daytime television dispute between a contractor and a billionaire client. This was about to become the most explosive accountability moment in modern American history, a courtroom showdown that would determine whether the ultra-wealthy could continue operating above the law or if justice truly applied to everyone regardless of their bank account. The stage was set for what would become the most talked-about legal confrontation ever broadcast on television, and the implications would ripple through Silicon Valley, Wall Street, and every boardroom in America. Judge Judy Sheindlin had unknowingly stepped into the center of a battle that had been brewing for months behind closed doors, a battle between truth and power, between justice and influence, between a working-class contractor who refused to be silenced and a tech mogul who thought his billions made him untouchable. What made this confrontation so explosive wasn't just the money involved. It was what this case represented for millions of Americans who had watched the wealthy elite escape consequences time and time again while ordinary people faced the full weight of the law for far lesser offenses. But there was something even more sinister lurking beneath the surface of this seemingly straightforward contract dispute. Intelligence sources close to the case had revealed that this wasn't an isolated incident, but part of a larger pattern of behavior that stretched back years and involved multiple victims who had been intimidated into silence through legal threats and financial settlements. The contractor sitting in Judge Judy's courtroom had broken that silence, and what he was about to reveal would expose a systematic abuse of power that reached the highest levels of the tech industry. The timing of this case couldn't have been more perfect or more dangerous. With federal investigations already circling around Musk's business practices, with whistleblowers coming forward from multiple companies, and with congressional hearings looming on the horizon, This single hour on daytime television was about to provide the smoking gun that prosecutors had been searching for. Judge Judy had no idea that her courtroom was about to become ground zero for the downfall of one of the most powerful men in the world. What made this moment even more explosive was that Elon Musk had walked into this trap completely unprepared, believing that his usual charm and misdirection would work on a television judge just like it had worked on investors, regulators, and the media for years. He had no idea that Judge Judy had already spent weeks investigating not just this case, but his entire history of business dealings, and she had uncovered evidence that would make even his most loyal supporters question everything they thought they knew about their hero. The stakes couldn't have been higher because this wasn't just about $75,000 in unpaid contractor fees. It was about whether justice in America was truly blind or if it had been bought and paid for by the billionaire class. And what Judge Judy was about to uncover would prove that some secrets are too explosive to stay buried, no matter how much money you spend trying to hide them. Elon Musk had been riding the highest wave of success in modern business history, sitting atop a trillion-dollar empire that stretched from electric vehicles to space exploration to social media dominance. As the world's richest man with a net worth that fluctuated by billions daily, he had become accustomed to a level of power and influence that most people could never imagine. Born in South Africa and raised with an unshakable belief in his own genius, Musk had built his reputation on being the visionary who could solve any problem, disrupt any industry, and bend reality to his will through sheer force of personality and unlimited financial resources. But what the public didn't know was that behind the carefully crafted image of the innovative entrepreneur lay a darker reality of broken promises, intimidated employees, and a trail of financial victims who had been silenced through legal threats and non-disclosure agreements. Former business partners whispered stories of deals gone wrong, contractors spoke in hushed tones about unpaid bills and changed agreements, and employees shared anonymous accounts of a workplace culture built on fear and retaliation against anyone who dared to challenge the boss's decisions. Musk's political brand had been carefully constructed around being the rebel billionaire who fought against government regulation and traditional corporate structures, someone who presented himself as a champion of free speech and innovation while simultaneously using his vast legal resources to crush anyone who spoke out against him. His supporters saw him as proof that American capitalism could still produce visionary leaders who changed the world, but what they didn't see were the countless individuals who had been destroyed financially and professionally for refusing to stay silent about his business practices. The truth was that Elon Musk had become dangerously comfortable in his role as an untouchable figure who could manipulate markets with a single tweet, influence government policy through strategic political donations, and make problems disappear through expensive legal settlements. He had grown so accustomed to getting his way that he had forgotten what it felt like to face real consequences for his actions. His inner circle had become filled with yes-men and enablers who were too afraid of losing their lucrative positions to ever tell him the truth about his behavior. This comfort with operating above the rules had made him recklessly overconfident, perhaps even delusional about his ability to charm his way out of any situation, no matter how much evidence existed against him. He had successfully convinced himself that his wealth and influence made him immune to the kind of accountability that ordinary people faced every day. What made this delusion even more dangerous was that it had worked for so long that Musk genuinely believed his own propaganda about being a misunderstood genius who was always being attacked by jealous competitors and corrupt media. But what Elon Musk didn't realize as he walked into Judge Judy's courtroom that day was that he was about to face someone who couldn't be bought, intimidated, or charmed. Someone who had built her entire career on seeing through the lies of people who thought their money made them special. And the evidence she had gathered about his pattern of behavior was about to shatter the carefully constructed image that had fooled millions of people for years. On the other side of that courtroom sat Judge Judy Sheinlin, and she represented everything that made entitled billionaires break out in cold sweats during their worst nightmares. A former family court judge from Brooklyn who had been dispensing no-nonsense justice on television since 1996, Judge Judy had become America's most trusted voice for accountability, someone who had built an empire of her own by refusing to let money, status, or smooth-talking override basic human decency and legal obligations. At 81 years old, She had handled over 25,000 cases and developed an almost supernatural ability to detect lies, expose fraudsters, and humble the arrogant with surgical precision that left grown men crying and billionaires begging for mercy. But what made Judge Judy truly dangerous to people like Elon Musk wasn't just her decades of legal experience or her fearless television persona. It was her secret network of investigators, former law enforcement officials, and financial experts who had spent years helping her prepare for cases involving high-profile defendants. When word reached her team that Elon Musk would be appearing in her courtroom, they had immediately launched the most comprehensive background investigation in the show's history, uncovering financial records, business communications, and witness testimonies that painted a picture so damaging it could destroy careers and trigger federal investigations. Judge Judy's reputation for preparation was legendary among legal professionals who knew that appearing on her show meant facing someone who had done more homework than most federal prosecutors. Her staff maintained relationships with investigative journalists, former employees of major corporations, and financial forensics experts who could trace money trails and expose corporate fraud with frightening accuracy. What started as research for a simple contractor dispute had uncovered a web of financial misconduct so extensive that her team had quietly shared their findings with federal authorities weeks before the taping began. The judge represented millions of working-class Americans who were tired of watching wealthy elites escape consequences while ordinary people faced bankruptcy, imprisonment, and financial ruin for far lesser offenses. She had built her career on being the equalizer, the one person on television who treated everyone exactly the same regardless of their bank account, political connections, or celebrity status. Her courtroom had become a sanctuary where justice wasn't for sale and where the truth mattered more than public relations campaigns or expensive legal strategies. What made her particularly terrifying to defendants like Musk was her combination of legal expertise, investigative resources, and complete immunity to intimidation tactics that had worked on other judges, regulators, and politicians. Unlike government officials who could be influenced through campaign contributions or business deals, Judge Judy had already made her fortune and built her legacy on principles that couldn't be bought or compromised. She had spent 25 years perfecting the art of destroying liars on live television, and she had never encountered a case that excited her more than the opportunity to expose someone who thought their wealth placed them above the law. Judge Judy had been waiting her entire career for a case like this, an opportunity to show America that justice could still prevail against unlimited money and influence, and she had prepared for this moment with the kind of thorough investigation that would make FBI agents jealous. What she had discovered about Elon Musk's business practices was so explosive that she knew this single case would become the defining moment of her legendary career, and the evidence she was about to present would shock even her most cynical viewers who thought they had seen everything. The backstory that brought these two titans together was far more explosive and sinister than anyone could have imagined, a tale of betrayal, cover-ups, and hidden evidence that had been carefully buried for over 18 months until one brave contractor decided to risk everything to expose the truth. It all began in March 2023 when Marcus Rodriguez, a veteran electrical contractor with 20 years of spotless reputation, was hired through a secret intermediary to install a cutting-edge charging system at one of Musk's private properties in Austin, Texas. But what started as a routine $75,000 project quickly spiraled into a nightmare that would expose a pattern of fraud and intimidation that reached the highest levels of the tech industry. What Rodriguez didn't know when he signed the initial contract was that he was being set up as part of an elaborate scheme to test illegal modifications to Tesla's charging technology, modifications that could potentially electrocute users and violate dozens of federal safety regulations. Musk's team had deliberately chosen a small contractor who they believed could be easily controlled and silenced if things went wrong, someone who wouldn't have the resources to fight back against an army of corporate lawyers and private investigators. But they had seriously underestimated Marcus Rodriguez, a former military engineer who recognized the dangerous violations immediately and began secretly documenting everything with hidden cameras and encrypted communications. The tension had been building for months as Rodriguez tried to complete the work safely while Musk's representatives pressured him to install the illegal modifications, threatening to destroy his business and his family's financial security if he refused to cooperate or spoke to anyone about what he had witnessed. When Rodriguez finally stood up to them and demanded proper safety protocols, Musk's team launched a vicious campaign of harassment that included false reviews on his business websites, threatening phone calls to his family members, and anonymous tips to government agencies claiming Rodriguez was operating without proper licenses. But what made this confrontation even more explosive was the discovery that Rodriguez wasn't the first contractor to be victimized by this scheme. Judge Judy's investigators had uncovered at least 6 other cases where small business owners had been hired for similar projects, forced to sign extensive non-disclosure agreements, and then systematically destroyed when they refused to participate in potentially illegal activities. The pattern was clear and deliberate, a systematic abuse of power designed to test dangerous technologies, using expendable contractors who could be discarded and silenced when they became inconvenient. The case had been simmering in legal limbo for over a year, with Musk's legal team using every delay tactic in the book while simultaneously trying to intimidate Rodriguez into accepting a settlement that would have required him to destroy all evidence and never speak about his experiences. But Rodriguez had secretly been working with federal investigators and whistleblower protection advocates who helped him understand that this case was much bigger than just his unpaid invoice, that his testimony could expose a criminal enterprise that had been operating in plain sight for years. What made this moment so dangerous for Musk was that Rodriguez had kept detailed records of everything, including recorded phone conversations, encrypted emails, and video evidence of the illegal modifications he was being pressured to install. And now, sitting in Judge Judy's courtroom with federal immunity protection and a team of investigators backing him up, Rodriguez was finally ready to tell the world about the criminal conspiracy he had uncovered, evidence so damaging that it would not only destroy Musk's reputation but potentially send him to federal prison for decades. The attack on Judge Judy's authority came during what should have been a routine opening statement, but what unfolded next would go down in television history as the most arrogant and self-destructive courtroom performance ever captured on camera. Elon Musk had walked into that courtroom with his usual swagger, believing that his charm, offensive, and carefully rehearsed talking points would easily overwhelm a television judge who he assumed had never dealt with someone of his caliber and complexity. He had no idea that he was about to make the worst mistake of his entire career by underestimating someone who had been preparing for this exact moment for months. As Marcus Rodriguez began explaining the basics of the charging system installation, Musk suddenly interrupted with a condescending laugh that echoed through the silent courtroom like a gunshot. "Your Honor, with all due respect, I don't think you or this gentleman understand the revolutionary complexity of the technology we're discussing here," Musk said, his voice dripping with the kind of arrogance that had made him enemies throughout Silicon Valley. "This isn't like the simple cases you usually handle involving parking tickets and neighbor disputes. We're talking about cutting-edge electrical engineering that's literally decades ahead of anything the government regulators even comprehend." The impact of his words hit the courtroom like a thunderbolt, but Musk was just getting started with what would become a masterclass in self-destruction. Judge Judy's face remained perfectly composed, but everyone could see her jaw tighten as Musk continued his lecture. "I've revolutionized the automotive industry, transformed space exploration, and acquired one of the world's largest social media platforms," he continued, leaning back in his chair with the confidence of someone who genuinely believed his money made him untouchable. "I think I know a little bit more about project management and technical specifications than someone who's spent their career dealing with small claims disputes." But Musk wasn't finished destroying himself, apparently emboldened by what he mistook for Judge Judy's stunned silence. The courtroom fell completely silent as he delivered what he thought would be his knockout punch. "Look, Your Honor, I respect what you do here, I really do, but maybe we should stick to what we both know best. You handle the simple stuff like unpaid rent and broken contracts, and I'll handle changing the world and pushing humanity toward a sustainable future." This contractor clearly doesn't understand that when you're working on revolutionary technology, sometimes you have to adapt and evolve beyond the original scope. The condescension in his voice was now so thick you could cut it with a knife, and every person in that courtroom understood they were witnessing something unprecedented in the history of daytime television. Musk had just publicly dismissed Judge Judy as intellectually inferior, while simultaneously admitting that he routinely changed project scopes without proper compensation, giving her exactly the ammunition she needed to destroy him completely. But he still wasn't done digging his own grave deeper. The truth is, Your Honor, this whole situation could have been avoided if Mr. Rodriguez had simply been more flexible and understanding about the innovative nature of what we were trying to accomplish, Musk said, now pointing directly at the contractor with obvious disdain. Instead of embracing the opportunity to be part of something groundbreaking, he got stuck in old-fashioned thinking about contracts and payments. When you're working with someone like me, you have to understand that we're not bound by the same limitations that restrict ordinary business relationships. What Elon Musk had just done was provide Judge Judy with a full confession on live television, admitting that he believed himself above normal business practices and contractual obligations while insulting both her intelligence and her authority. The arrogance was so breathtaking that even his own legal team looked mortified, frantically texting and trying to signal him to stop talking. But Musk was on a roll, completely oblivious to the fact that he had just handed Judge Judy everything she needed to not only rule against him but to expose him as the entitled fraud that her investigation had already proven him to be. The stage was now set for Judge Judy to unleash the most devastating courtroom destruction in television history, and Musk had unknowingly provided her with the perfect opening by revealing exactly who he really was underneath all the carefully crafted public relations and social media manipulation. Judge Judy's face remained perfectly calm as Elon Musk finished his arrogant tirade, but anyone who had watched her show for years could recognize the deadly silence that always preceded her most devastating takedowns. Her eyes had narrowed to laser-sharp focus, and she slowly placed both hands flat on her desk in the deliberate manner that courtroom veterans knew meant someone was about to get completely destroyed on live television. What Musk didn't realize was that his condescending lecture had just triggered the most thoroughly prepared judicial response in daytime television history, and Judge Judy was about to unleash evidence so damaging that it would make headlines around the world within minutes. What Elon didn't know as he sat there smugly waiting for her response was that Judge Judy had spent the last 3 weeks reviewing hundreds of pages of documented evidence that her investigation team had compiled, evidence that included not just the details of Rodriguez's case, but a comprehensive pattern of fraud and intimidation that stretched back over 5 years and involved dozens of victims across multiple states. Her team had worked around the clock to verify every document, cross-reference every witness statement, and prepare a presentation so airtight that it could stand up in federal court and likely would within a matter of weeks. But the most explosive element of Judge Judy's preparation wasn't just the paperwork and witness testimonies that filled 3 bankers' boxes in her chambers. It was the digital evidence that Rodriguez had secretly captured during his months of harassment and intimidation, evidence that included recorded phone conversations where Musk personally threatened to destroy Rodriguez's business and his family's financial security if he ever spoke publicly about what he had witnessed. The recordings were so clear and so incriminating that federal prosecutors had already issued immunity protection for Rodriguez in exchange for his cooperation in their expanding criminal investigation. Judge Judy had also uncovered something that even Rodriguez didn't know about, something so shocking that it had kept her awake for nights planning exactly how to reveal it for maximum impact. Her investigators had discovered that the illegal charging modifications Musk had pressured Rodriguez to install weren't just safety violations, they were part of a secret testing program designed to circumvent federal regulations and rush dangerous technology to market without proper oversight. The evidence showed that Musk had knowingly put public safety at risk to gain a competitive advantage, and that at least 3 serious accidents had already occurred at other locations where similar illegal modifications had been installed. What made this moment so perfectly orchestrated was that Judge Judy had been deliberately allowing Musk to hang himself with his own arrogance, letting him reveal his true character and his belief that rules didn't apply to him before she dropped the bombshell evidence that would destroy his carefully crafted public image forever. Every condescending word he had spoken, every dismissive gesture he had made, every claim about his superior intelligence and revolutionary technology had been captured on camera and would soon be played alongside the evidence of his criminal behavior and systematic abuse of power. The irony was absolutely perfect because while Musk was lecturing Judge Judy about revolutionary technology and complex engineering, she was sitting on evidence that proved he had used that same technology to commit federal crimes and endanger innocent people's lives for profit. And in just moments, she was going to reveal not only the full scope of his criminal behavior, but also the secret recordings that would prove he had personally threatened and intimidated multiple victims to keep them silent. Evidence so damaging that it would trigger the biggest corporate scandal in modern American history and potentially end with Musk facing decades in federal prison. Judge Judy finally leaned forward toward her microphone, and when she spoke, her voice carried the kind of cold fury that had made grown men confess to crimes they thought they'd never get caught for. Mr. Musk, you sit there lecturing me about revolutionary technology and complex engineering, but let me tell you exactly what kind of revolutionary criminal you really are. The words hit the courtroom like a nuclear explosion, and Musk's confident smirk instantly vanished as he realized he had just walked into the most perfectly orchestrated legal trap in television history. You want to talk about complexity? Let's talk about the complex web of lies, fraud, and intimidation that you've been running for the past 5 years. Judge Judy continued, reaching for the first of 3 thick folders that contained enough evidence to destroy Musk's empire forever. Mr. Rodriguez isn't just some contractor you stiffed for $75,000. He's a federal witness under immunity protection who recorded every single threat you made against him and his family when he refused to install your illegal charging modifications that have already caused 3 serious accidents and could have killed innocent people. The courtroom erupted in gasps as Judge Judy played the first recording, Musk's own voice filling the silent room with crystal-clear audio of him personally threatening to destroy Rodriguez's business and ruin his family financially if he ever spoke about what he had witnessed. That's your voice, isn't it, Mr. Musk? Threatening a working man and his children because he wouldn't help you commit federal crimes. The recording was so damning and so clear that even Musk's legal team looked like they wanted to disappear into the floor. But Judge Judy was just getting started with her systematic destruction of the world's richest man. Let's talk about your revolutionary technology, shall we? Because I have the federal safety reports right here that show your illegal modifications have already electrocuted 2 Tesla owners and caused a house fire that nearly killed an entire family in Phoenix. She held up photographs of the burned home and medical reports that showed the devastating injuries caused by Musk's rush to circumvent safety regulations for competitive advantage. You talk about changing the world, Mr. Musk, but the only thing you've changed is how many people you're willing to hurt and intimidate to protect your profits, Judge Judy said, her voice rising with righteous anger that resonated with millions of viewers who had waited years to see someone hold the ultra-wealthy accountable for their crimes. I have documented evidence of at least 12 other contractors and employees you've threatened, harassed, and financially destroyed for refusing to participate in your criminal schemes. The evidence kept coming like an avalanche that buried Musk deeper with every revelation. Here are the internal emails from your own engineers warning you that these modifications were dangerous and illegal. Here are the NDAs you forced victims to sign. Here are the financial records showing you've spent over $20 million paying hush money to keep your crime secret. And here's my personal favorite, the recording where you bragged to your executives about being untouchable because, quote, judges and regulators are too stupid to understand what we're really doing. Judge Judy's voice dropped to a deadly whisper that somehow made her words even more powerful. Well, Mr. Musk, this stupid judge understands exactly what you're doing. You're a criminal who uses his wealth to intimidate witnesses, cover up safety violations, and put innocent people's lives at risk for profit. You're not a visionary or a revolutionary. You're just another rich criminal who thought he was too important to follow the law. The final blow came when Judge Judy revealed the evidence that would trigger federal indictments within weeks. The FBI has been investigating you for 18 months, Mr. Musk, and Mr. Rodriguez's testimony is going to be the key that sends you to federal prison for the next 20 years. This $75,000 case isn't about money anymore. It's about justice for every person you've hurt, every family you've threatened, and every law you've broken while hiding behind your billions. Judge Judy leaned back in her chair, having delivered the most comprehensive destruction of a defendant in the history of daytime television. Mr. Musk, You owe Mr. Rodriguez $75,000 plus interest, plus court costs. Plus, I'm awarding him an additional $200,000 in punitive damages for the harassment and threats you put him through. But more importantly, you're going to face federal charges that will make this look like a parking ticket. The silence in the courtroom was deafening as America watched the world's richest man realize that his money, his influence, and his carefully crafted public image couldn't save him from the consequences of his criminal behavior, and that his arrogant appearance on Judge Judy had just provided federal prosecutors with the final evidence they needed to destroy him completely. The immediate aftermath of Judge Judy's devastating takedown of Elon Musk created a social media earthquake that registered unlike anything the internet had ever experienced, with the hashtag Judge Judy Destroys Elon trending worldwide within 30 seconds of the verdict and crashing multiple platforms as millions of people shared the most explosive courtroom footage in television history. The original clip was viewed over 50 million times in the first hour alone, with political commentators, legal experts, and ordinary citizens all struggling to process the magnitude of what they had just witnessed as the world's most powerful tech mogul was systematically destroyed by America's toughest television judge. Tesla's stock price immediately went into freefall, dropping over 40% in after-hours trading as investors realized that the company's CEO wasn't just facing a civil judgment, but potential federal criminal charges that could result in decades of imprisonment and the complete dismantling of his business empire. SpaceX faced immediate scrutiny from NASA and other government partners, with several contracts being suspended pending federal investigation. Twitter, still reeling from Musk's chaotic ownership, saw advertisers fleeing in unprecedented numbers as brands distanced themselves from a platform owned by someone facing serious criminal charges. But the financial destruction was nothing compared to the personal humiliation that Musk faced as millions of people shared clips of his arrogant courtroom performance alongside the devastating evidence that Judge Judy had presented. Late-night talk show hosts dedicated entire monologues to mocking his condescending attitude and spectacular downfall. Saturday Night Live announced they would dedicate their entire next episode to recreating the courtroom confrontation. Comedy Central greenlit an emergency special called The Day Judge Judy Broke Elon Musk that would become their highest-rated program in years. The legal implications were even more explosive than the social media reaction, as federal prosecutors announced within hours that they were accelerating their timeline for bringing criminal charges against Musk based on the evidence that had been presented in Judge Judy's courtroom. The Department of Justice confirmed that they had been working with Judge Judy's investigation team for weeks, and that Rodriguez's testimony, combined with the recorded evidence, provided them with everything they needed to pursue charges including fraud, conspiracy, witness intimidation, and reckless endangerment that could result in life imprisonment. What made the aftermath even more devastating for Musk was the avalanche of new victims who came forward after watching the show, emboldened by Rodriguez's courage and Judge Judy's promise that justice would finally be served. Within 24 hours, over 200 former employees, contractors, and business partners had contacted federal authorities with their own stories of harassment, intimidation, and financial destruction at the hands of Musk's organization. Each new witness provided additional evidence of a criminal enterprise that had operated with impunity for years while hiding behind carefully crafted public relations campaigns. The international reaction was equally swift and brutal, with governments around the world launching their own investigations into Musk's business practices and safety violations. The European Union announced immediate safety inspections of all Tesla charging stations, while China suspended all SpaceX contracts pending a comprehensive review of the company's safety protocols. Even longtime Musk supporters in the tech industry began distancing themselves, with several prominent venture capitalists and tech leaders issuing statements condemning the behavior that had been exposed in Judge Judy's courtroom. Perhaps most damaging to Musk's carefully cultivated image was the reaction from his own employees and supporters, many of whom took to social media to express their shock and disappointment at learning about the systematic abuse and criminal behavior that had been hidden from them for years. Several high-profile Tesla executives announced their resignations, and SpaceX faced a potential exodus of top engineers who refused to continue working for someone facing serious federal charges. The cultural impact of Judge Judy's takedown extended far beyond just Musk's personal destruction, as millions of Americans saw it as proof that justice could still prevail against unlimited wealth and influence when someone with integrity and preparation was willing to stand up to corporate criminals. The case became a symbol of accountability in an era when many people had lost faith in the ability of the legal system to hold the ultra-wealthy responsible for their actions. Within a week of the show's airing, congressional hearings were announced to investigate not just Musk's criminal behavior but the broader culture of impunity that had allowed tech billionaires to operate above the law for so long. Judge Judy herself was invited to testify before Congress about her investigation and the evidence she had uncovered, turning her from a daytime television star into a national hero for accountability and justice. The story that had started as a simple contractor dispute had become the catalyst for the biggest corporate accountability moment in modern American history, proving that sometimes it takes just one person with courage and preparation to bring down even the most powerful criminals, and that justice delayed is not always justice denied when the right evidence finally comes to light. This incredible story proves that in America, no one is truly above the law when they finally face someone who has the courage, preparation, and integrity to expose their crimes regardless of their wealth or influence. Judge Judy's systematic destruction of Elon Musk will be remembered as the moment when accountability finally caught up with a tech billionaire elite, showing the entire world that money cannot buy immunity from justice when you're dealing with someone who has spent their entire career seeing through lies and exposing fraudsters on live television. The lesson here is absolutely devastating for anyone who thinks their bank account makes them untouchable. When you build your empire on intimidation, threats, and criminal behavior, when you silence victims through expensive legal settlements and non-disclosure agreements, when you put innocent people's lives at risk for profit and competitive advantage, eventually you will face someone who cannot be bought, intimidated, or fooled by your carefully crafted public image. Elon Musk learned this lesson in the most humiliating and public way possible, and his downfall serves as a warning to every other billionaire who thinks they can operate above the rules that govern everyone else. What makes this story even more powerful is how it demonstrates the importance of ordinary people like Marcus Rodriguez, who refuse to be silenced even when facing the full weight of a billionaire's legal and financial resources. His courage to document the truth, cooperate with federal investigators, and testify publicly despite months of harassment and threats ultimately became the key that unlocked justice for hundreds of other victims who had suffered in silence for years. Sometimes it takes just one person willing to stand up to a bully to bring down an entire criminal enterprise. The broader implications of this case extend far beyond just Elon Musk's personal destruction, representing a turning point in how America deals with corporate accountability and the abuse of power by the ultra-wealthy. Judge Judy's investigation and the federal charges that followed have already triggered congressional hearings, international investigations, and a complete reevaluation of how tech billionaires have been allowed to operate without meaningful oversight or consequences for their actions. But perhaps the most important lesson from this incredible story is that preparation and integrity will always triumph over arrogance and criminal behavior when given the right platform and opportunity. Judge Judy spent weeks building an airtight case based on documented evidence, witness testimony, and federal cooperation, while Elon Musk walked into that courtroom with nothing but his usual charm, offensive, and belief that his wealth made him immune to accountability. The result was the most spectacular downfall in modern American business history. If you found this incredible story as shocking and satisfying as millions of other viewers around the world, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel because we bring you the most explosive and unbelievable true stories that you simply cannot find anywhere else. What did you think of Judge Judy's historic takedown of Elon Musk? Let us know in the comments below if you believe this case will finally bring real accountability to the tech billionaire class, and don't forget to share this video with anyone who needs to see proof that justice can still prevail against unlimited money and power. Hit that notification bell so you're the first to know when we drop our next explosive story about powerful people finally facing consequences for their actions. This case proves that the truth always comes out eventually, and that sometimes the most powerful weapon against corporate criminals is a daytime television judge who refuses to be impressed by billions of dollars and rocket ships when faced with clear evidence of fraud, intimidation, and reckless endangerment of innocent people. The story of Judge Judy versus Elon Musk will be studied for generations as proof that in America, when someone finally has the courage to stand up with facts, evidence, and unshakable integrity, even the richest and most powerful criminals can be brought to justice in front of the entire world. And sometimes, that justice comes from the most unexpected place, delivered by an 81-year-old television judge who spent 25 years perfecting the art of destroying liars and fraudsters with nothing but the truth and the courage to speak it.